Well, I'm sitting here with DJ Risk of Paul Risk Construction. They're based out of Quarryville, Pennsylvania here. We have an ongoing joke in the Lancaster County area that's on the other side of the world. You're probably sick of hearing that, I know.
But you guys are just as far away.
Perspective is such an interesting thing. So, DJ, thank you for stepping up to the line here to have a real and honest conversation with me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Joshua. It's a privilege and an honor to be a part of the podcast.
Yeah. Well, we want to talk with real people, and we want to talk with the companies that are doing it right. And I was talking with you the other day just about your culture and what you guys are doing, and so we really want to talk about that today and kind of highlight some of what you guys do. So
sounds great.
Yeah. So talk with me a little bit about, how you're the president of Paul Risk Construction, correct?
Yes.
And your last name is Risk.
Correct.
So talk with me about how did that, where did you start? Why are you in construction of all of the things? Why here?
So it's a funny story. Actually, it was my sophomore year of high school. I wanted to be a sports agent. That was my dream. But then as I started to look at the life I had growing up that my dad provided for us, my parents were at all my sporting events. They were always there to support us. And reality, from my perspective, my dad was always home for dinner, and we had an amazing life as kids growing up. We got to do a lot of cool things, travel that my friends weren't doing.
Yeah.
So I was looking at him like, wow, my dad is always home. He doesn't work very hard, and we get to do all these cool things. Little did I know how hard he actually worked, and I quickly found that out once I got into the business.
Yeah. Wow. Well, and so you made that decision in your sophomore year, you're saying?
Yes.
So talk with me about what roles you've held at Paul Risk, because while you're the president now, I don't think that's where you started.
No, I remember removing snow in the blizzard of '94. I was 11.
Wow.
In a skid loader at the LGH hospital outside of Park City. So they needed snow removed and had no one else to do it. So I was in a skid loader. My dad was in a backhoe. Summers all through high school, worked out in the field. I think one of my first jobs at Willow Valley, I was drilling plank. I realized really quickly I don't want to be drilling plank my entire life. And then I shipped off to Arizona State for college and really enjoyed the Tempe area.
Mm-hmm.
And then came back into the business in spring of 2007, and things were booming. We had like $150 million retirement community underway. We were starting site work. And then it was August of 2008, the bank pulled funding on that thing. I was an assistant project manager on it. I was managing.
In the middle of the job?
Yeah, so we had basements were dug, sanitary, stormwater were all in the ground. Steel was ordered. And It was a bank from Germany, so they pulled out in August, and we're sitting there. I was managing the resident request. So we had 350 units, 250 were sold at this point in time. And we're like, you'll be able to get funding. We have 250 units sold out of 350, no big deal. So we kept going with Andrews Excavating. We ended up carrying the cost for two more months. And then once we got to the end of September, it's kind of when everyone realized what was going on in 2008, and the project stopped. The steel sat out there for 15 years, probably 300 tons of steel just sat there rusting away.
Are you serious?
And nothing ever got built there.
Wow.
So that was a crazy learning curve as an assistant PM. And then I slowly moved into a PM role, small projects like $1 million and that, and then started managing larger projects down at Shenandoah. I managed 2 large apartment buildings, so 125 units. And then in 2016 at the company kickoff party, we always did a party in January rather than a holiday party.
Yeah.
With all of our clients and everything, my dad gets up to do a speech, and the way he starts talking, I look at my wife and I'm like, I think he's about to name me as president. And I start looking around.
You didn't know this?
No one knew.
Oh, I like your dad.
My mom was, turns out, we had 5 partners at the time, and no one knew. Apparently, he had the conversation with my mom on the drive into the party.
Wow.
So that was beginning of that would have been January 2016. I took over as president.
Wow. That's crazy. So is your dad still in the organization at all, or he retired? And
he fully retired at the end of 2019.
Wow.
we still pay him rent, but we changed the lock so he can't get in the building anymore. So nice. I don't know what he saw on the writing on the wall, what was coming in 2020. Yeah. But no, so he spends a lot of his time down in Florida with my mom, and wow. he's real big into off-road jeeping. Okay. So he travels the country running events for Jeep Jamboree USA. And
oh yeah, I like your dad.
He gets to chase his passion, and we're really happy he gets to do that for more reasons than one.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Wow. So you were breaking into your project management role when that happened.
Yeah.
So I often wonder this because it's something. Do you think it was better that you were starting your career to go through that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, because you saw how bad it could get, how quickly. So yeah. You weren't just. We talked a little bit earlier about how, the times were amazing, 06, 07, and yeah. You're like, how's this ever going to stop? And then going through that early in my career just, prepared me. I was much better prepared for when 2020 and COVID hit, yeah. And we went through all those learning curves.
Well, and I think, it's interesting because I've watched different people go through different things at different stages in their life, and I feel like for me, the older I get, the harder it is to do things like that. The experience is really helpful, but it's really interesting how the younger and the older need to kind of come together to carry the weight together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because I don't have the desire or the level of risk that I used to have, but yet you don't win if you don't take some risk.
Yep.
Wow, that's really to go through that. That gives you some of the experience. I think that there's really no way to get that other than living through that.
Yeah, I think that's all of construction, right? Where can you go to school and learn how to build 100 apartments or a 45,000 square foot car dealership? Like, there's really nowhere to go and learn that other than getting out there and experiencing it in real life.
So what do you think, as you were going through those experiences, starting very young, obviously, managing, different aspects, you came back from Arizona State. Is that that's what you said? Arizona
yes.
State. And you enter back into the business at that point. What did that look like?
Well, there's definitely some pressure early on because you're the boss's son.
Yeah.
There's partners, and everyone kind of has a vision. And then unfortunately through 08, when we had to downsize, we were 70 employees before 08. I think we trimmed all the way down to about 25. But one of the biggest struggles.
Wow, that had to be hard.
Very, very hard for my dad. I'm glad I didn't have to have all those conversations.
Oh, that would be hard.
But one of the biggest challenges is when we had partners, there was cash wasn't coming in the door, so there's no way to buy the partners out. So unfortunately, the team that was doing the majority of the work, the project managers and that group, they were the ones that had to go. So like the team that would have grown with me was no longer there.
Wow. And so who then became that team? Did the partners have to step into that role, or?
So yeah, some of the partners, they kind of took on PM roles and that type of thing. And we had a couple really good guys that stayed, I think we kept 3 PMs at that point in time. And they were with me up until they retired here over the last 2 or 3 years even. And then
wow.
Kind of just growing the people within, finding some other people that, and being in Quarryville obviously is a little bit of geographical challenge when you're trying to recruit project managers with the amazing construction teams here in Lancaster County. We're very fortunate.
We do.
So it's finding local people that, and we've been really fortunate to find some people down in the southern end.
What would you, you talk about, you mentioned about here in Lancaster County. I do have to say, I think that there is a work ethic. I don't know if it's because we're surrounded by so much farmland and farm kids.
Yep.
But there truly is a different type of people. And I don't mean it like everyone. You have these people everywhere. But I've definitely seen what I would call, one of the companies that we work with actually marketed themselves as, well, we do it the Lancaster County way. We do it the Lancaster way, which to some of their clients in New York was a huge selling point.
Right.
And it's like, and especially when you get into the, a lot of people don't know this. I'm sure you know this, but Lancaster is one of the largest retirement meccas other than Florida.
Yes.
In our country, which is kind of mind blowing.
Yeah, 80% of our work's in this senior living market. That's the space we love to be in.
Wow. So you go through that hardship in '08, and then you're essentially rebuilding the company with the team, and you're working there alongside them. What was the thing that you were learning from those guys that you're working alongside? Because you went to college and you had your book stuff that you learned, but you and I were talking earlier about experience.
Yep.
And how there is no substitute for that in construction. Tell me some of those stories.
I think the biggest thing is it boils down to people.
Come on.
Your client, specifically your clients and your employees, your specialty contractors. If you take care of your people across the board, I hear some of these horror stories of what specialty contractors go through with some other GCs, and it's just like they're the people that are putting 90% of the work in place. If we don't take care of them, how can you have a successful project? So it's always been, for me, if you take care of the people, from design professionals, the clients, your employees, the specialty contractors, the projects will follow. And then once the projects get going, the profits will follow. So if as long as you take care of the people, everything else works out.
I love that. So of course, you're plucking at my heartstrings here because you're using the term specialty contractors, which I was one. And I did a podcast a few years ago with a company. They just recently, I think, celebrated 103 years. Also named after the founder, called J.E. Dunn. I'll give him a shout out. And they referred to all of their, they called them trade partners and specialty contractors. And I thought that was fascinating because you also hear the term subcontractors.
Yes.
And I find it really interesting that you're not using that term because people use that term and they don't realize words matter. The words that we use matter. And it's like, now, granted, I think that specialty contractors and trade partners need to recognize the risk that a GC takes. Well, we might do most of the work, whether you're a plumber, HVAC, excavator, whatever you are, the risk falls on you.
Right.
And so you talk about '08 and you say that you guys made the decisions to keep going with Andrews and whatever happened there, you guys had to deal with it.
Yes.
You guys had to deal with it. And it's like, and that's the other aspect where I think it's a two-way street because we're a team. But I love the fact that you refer to it that way and you use those words because it changes the way that we think when we say things a certain way.
Yeah.
That
was something my grandfather, he always specialty contractors, because it doesn't matter if you're doing concrete or if you're the drywall finisher or if you're the electrician. Like the concrete guy can't do the electric.
Yeah.
The roofer can't do the drywall. Every specific trade is its own specialty, and they're all critical to the success of the project.
So I think that that's something I want to kind of maybe take a sidestep here and talk about something with you because I think you have some generational knowledge that I think is important to impart to not only your specialty contractors or trade partners, but those who are listening. Like, so as a GC, talk for a little bit about what it is that you say you have a job and you have the perfect team. You're excited about it and you're dealing with that, but you don't have the perfect client. Talk to me a little bit about what it is that you have to deal with and what it is that you bring to the table. And listen, I'm asking this, so you're not being humble, but I want people to hear because it's like you guys are the arranger. You are the one moving the pieces. And talk to me a little bit about what that looks like and how you're trying to make that project happen when you're working for a client like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big football guy, so I kind of equate it to a football team, right?
Yeah.
We're essentially, you have your owner, which is your client. We're kind of the general manager.
Gotcha.
Our superintendent's the coach, and then all of our specialty contractors are the players. If we scoop up a bunch of the lowest cost contractors and throw them out on the field tomorrow, we're probably not going to have very much success. New York Jets, Cleveland Browns, for example.
little name dropping there.
Yeah, but if if you take the time and you put the time into the pre-con and you put the time into the team to understand the job, and you can't go out and afford all the highest paid players either, because that just is a recipe that won't work either. So you got to find the right players for the right seats, and ultimately have that team and that understand that we're all in this together. there's going to be challenges. It's construction, right? Nothing goes as planned as much as you try and plan it.
Anybody who's ever brought a building out of the ground knows it's like giving birth to a baby.
Yeah, exactly. So, how do we handle those challenges? Not throwing our hands up, coming to the table with solutions, and ultimately, let's get that figured out before we need to go to the owner and explain why something isn't working, or this didn't work, but here's what we're going to do to fix it.
So, what does Paul Risk look for in a trade partner, in a specialty contractor? What is it like if someone is listening and they're like, wow, I really like what DJ is saying. I really like the way that he's talking. I want to work with them. What is it that you're looking for that makes them attractive to you that would give them that opportunity?
Yeah, just ultimately people we can count on. When the going gets tough, or we need an extra Saturday in there, or obviously change orders are a big part of the puzzle, and everyone needs to be paid for what they're owed. But sometimes there's some give and take there, and we hate the word change order. Like when I give a price to a client, that's the price we want to deliver on that. If someone comes and gives me a price to do something in my house, I expect that to be the price. So I think ultimately just people we can count on, and when we call, they're there, they're consistently pricing to us, so we just have that relationship.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. So I'm curious here. I'm going to ask you a question in just a minute or two, but before I ask that, did your grandfather start Paul Risk, or did your dad, or what's the origin there?
So my great-grandfather, Donald Risk, actually started in construction in 1933.
Come on.
And then my grandfather got involved in the company, and it was in the late 60s that we called him Pop. He decided he had some bad school jobs, and he was done, and he wanted to go back to steer farming. So he just one day tells my grandfather, I'm closing the company and I'm going back to the farm. And my grandpa was like, what do you mean? So he's not sure what he's going to do with his life. So ironically, like that week, Mr. Latta from A. Dewey Pile Trucking calls my grandfather, says, hey, Paul, I need a new trucking terminal in Westchester. My grandfather's like, well, Dad's closing the company. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with my life. So I don't know. And Mr. Latta said, well, come down on Monday and we'll talk. So Monday morning, my grandfather goes down, and Mr. Latta, he walks into his office, and Mr. Latta's like, sit at my desk. So naturally, like anyone would, he sits down in one of the two chairs at the desk. And Mr. Latta said, no, I said, sit at my desk. Go sit in my chair. And he said, look, Paul, I understand your dad's closing the business and you don't know what you're going to do with your career, but I need a trucking terminal built here in Westchester. And you're going to build it, and you're going to make every decision like it's your own building. And then after you do that, you can decide what you want to do with your life.
Wow.
So my grandpa was like, I don't even have a bank account. And Mr. Latta said, I'll write you a check every week if that's what we got to do. And so on the way home, my grandpa calls my grandmother up, and Shirley, and he tells her what happened. She's like, well, I guess I'm going to have to be the bookkeeper now. And he was about halfway through that project, and Jim Herr from Herr's Potato Chips calls him up and says, hey, Paul, I need a manufacturing facility in Nottingham. Same story. Don't know what I'm going to do with my career, closing the business. Jim Herr says to him, you mean to tell me Mr. Latta is a better friend to you, that you'll build his trucking terminal, but you won't build my potato chip factory? So needless to say, those two gentlemen essentially made my grandfather's career decision. And him and my grandma started with 2 employees in their basement and incorporated as Paul Risk Associates in 1972.
Wow. That is quite a story. Wow. That is, and now today, how many? I mean, it started with 2 employees. How many employees?
So right now we're at 25. So we have 15 superintendents and then 10 support PMs and support staff in the office.
Wow. Well, you guys are really, and I mean, I live around here. You're doing a lot.
Yeah.
With your crew.
Yeah. We always say we can do the bathroom renovation, or we can do the $60 million healthcare facility, and everything kind of all in between. Just a matter of finding the right people, the right projects, and something that we're all rowing the same direction. What's
an everyday carry thing that DJ has to have with him before he leaves the house?
Before I leave the house, it's in my dog.
Really?
Yeah, Winnie. She's a golden retriever. Now we just got a second dog, Blue, also a golden retriever. So that's made things a little more difficult. But
Blue, that's a good name.
Yeah, my kids named him Blue because puppies have sharp teeth, like Blue the raptor in Jurassic Park. So we got Blue.
Wow.
So Winnie would go to work with me every day, you know,
Really?
and it's like, no matter what, like you could have that tough phone call, or you
Yeah.
just need to get out of the office and go for a walk, and that dog's always there. And now there could be 6 dogs in the office any given time. Anyone can bring their dog in. So Fridays can get a little chaotic at the office when everyone has the dogs in there, but it's an awesome relief and just, you know.
I understand that. I'm a
day.
dog guy. I have a Great Dane and a Boston Terrier. So
2 different spectrums.
Yeah.
Yeah.
very much so. And I know exactly what you're talking about. Some days, and I don't know what it is about, you know, a lot of people don't realize this, but in leadership, I think hard phone calls become a big part of the job.
Yes.
And I was just having a conversation with my daughter the other day about what she should be looking for in a man. And I said, you don't want a nice guy, you want a good man. And a good man is one that has hard conversations and has boundaries. And, I come home from work some days and I maybe have had some hard conversations that I've had to have, whether an employee, whether a client, whatever the situation.
Yep.
And there's nothing like sitting there with your dog, and I don't know what it is, but they really truly are a man's best friend.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. So that's really cool that you take Winnie to work with you. I think that's pretty awesome. I remember being an apprentice, and there was an excavator, and he had this chocolate lab that went everywhere with him, and it was like an extension of his body. Like she'd sit with him in the truck. You know, he would get in the machine, and depending on the machine, she'd be in the machine with him, or she'd sit on the tailgate of the truck and just watch the job all day. Like,
just
perfectly.
wait for him to come back.
Just waiting for him to come back. Unbelievable. So, what does legacy mean to you?
Well, our tagline is a legacy built on trust. So ultimately, you know, our logo is a fingerprint.
Yeah,
and
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, and that's kind of part of our legacy, because, you know, fingerprints are, you know, they are who you say you are. That's the proof. The proof is right there. They're formed before birth.
Yeah.
All the hard work and grit throughout life, and the fingerprint is still there. And so by the time we're done with a project, our fingerprint, millions of them, are still across that project. So I think that, and I mean, I'll never forget as a kid driving around, Dad's like, "Oh, we built that. We built that." And me and my sister in the back of the car are like, "Yeah, Dad, we see the sign. Steve Risk built this." And then he caught me pretty good one time. We're driving around with my wife at the time. She was my girlfriend, and, you know, him and my mom were sitting up front, and we're driving around, and I'm back there like, "Oh yeah, we built that. We built that." He's like, "Yeah, you see." But construction's so unique, because what other industry or trade can you be a part of that, like that building or that project is going to be there probably beyond your lifetime, and that's a pretty cool thing to be able to share with your family and your friends and your kids.
That is pretty cool. That is. Well, I'm curious. I love the fingerprint, and brand is a big deal to me. Like I love helping build brands. I love being about that, and I love brands because I think a brand is your mark.
Yep.
You know, and even if you study the origin of brand, that is what it is.
Right.
You know, and so it's really important when people I think you should put thought into it. And so it's like, the cool part about that is here in Lancaster County, people could see that fingerprint with the orange inside without the name and know what it is. That's a good brand. And then having that story behind it about, you know, and it even makes sense. You can tell that it's a fingerprint.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's pretty creative. But with that, you're operating a company and you have partners. And so I know that changes the dynamic of it being a family company, but yet your name is on the company. What kind of pressure does that put on you?
I think early on it was a lot of pressure. You just want to make sure you succeed and you live up to my grandfather's name. Ultimately, is the name of the company, so you want to make him proud. I spent a lot of time with him. He taught me a lot. It was funny. I was fishing with my son last week, and he was like, "Well, who taught you how to fish?" I'm like, "Well, Grandpa taught me how to fish." And I'm like, "Wow, Grandpa taught me how to golf." Like, I was very fortunate that, you know, he was very involved in my life. So just honoring that, and, you know, hopefully maybe one day, I don't know if I would want my kids to go into it, because it's a pretty crazy up and down roller coaster as in construction. But if ultimately that's the decision that they want to make, then hey, hopefully I'm still here and able to pass that on to them.
Yeah. When did the job become more, and like I said, I've done some research on what you guys are doing and how you're doing it. When did it change for you where it became more than building buildings and it became about building people?
It was probably right when in the time I took over as president. We were Paul Risk Associates before that. So it's like, oh, what do you do? Are you insurance? Are you risk management? Oh, no, we're in construction. So we changed the name of the company to Paul Risk Construction. We went through the rebrand and we got the Fingerprint logo. And then probably maybe a couple years after that, probably right before COVID, you started to see, like, I call them the kids. Mm-hmm. The kids we hired or like came in right out of high school or trade school. And now I'm watching them, they're 10, 15 years into it, and they're the ones being the superintendents. So just watching that growth is really kind of when it really set in.
Yeah. What makes a good superintendent?
Someone that's willing to listen to other people's ideas, but they got to be, to your point, a good man, right?
Yeah.
He can't be the nice guy all the time, but you also can't be a jerk because you got it. There's a delicate balance there. So I think it's funny. We're very fortunate. Most of our superintendents now grew up with the trades, our superintendents that had been with us 30, 40, 50 years. So they got that.
Wait. Paul Risk has had superintendents that were with them for 30 or 40 because 50 years is a half a century.
Yep. Ed Brackbill retired at 50 years. And
wow.
We used to joke because we would put the young kids with Ed because we call it the School of Brackbill. If you could survive Ed, you could do anything.
Wow, that is a testament to your company's culture.
Yeah, and we're very fortunate that we had that. It wasn't as much time as we would have liked for that overlap, as everyone's experiencing. But we're very fortunate, like our guys that we have now had that opportunity to learn under them. So there's still some of the hardworking, old school mindset of what we got out there.
Your fingerprints are on jobs across the county and beyond. You got to tell that story more about the trying to decide if he wants to run the business. I mean, that's insane. And if that doesn't affect, your thoughts on something going on behind the scenes, I don't know, like for people just to call him up like that when he's trying to make a decision and be like, well, you're doing this, well, you're doing that, like, wow. What is it, what part of construction do you think that most people never see?
That's a great question. Maybe the challenges throughout a project. You drive by and you just see the project going up, and every day is a challenge. And I think that really weighs on that superintendent role, especially nowadays. I mean, they're asked to do so much more than what they were with computers and technology. They're quasi PMs, and then obviously with the gap in experience with the skilled trades, they're I don't want to call them glorified babysitters, but sometimes that's what they are.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing I worry about most is our supers and just what they go home with at night.
Yeah.
And being able to just, like, from their mental health perspective, being able to hopefully turn it off or not let it keep them up at night. And that's probably the biggest challenge.
I recently had a conversation with the superintendent, and he was, in my role at Blackline, I get to talk with different people all over the country. And in this conversation, he said, well, I have this, and he'd been in a new role, and he's like, I learned how to deal with this stress, and he'd gotten promoted. Instead of superintendent, he was like superintendent of operations, of superintendents.
Yeah.
And he said to me, he goes, but there's like this low hum of stress. And you talk about that. It's like, meaning, what does he go home with? What does he deal with? And I think you're right. I think people don't realize a lot of times, this maybe sounds like a weird analogy, but construction is a little bit like war. Like, you have this, when you have a project and you go through hell together.
Yep.
And I mean, it goes team partners, everything, your superintendents, everybody, but it's like, that really is hell because you don't know.
Yeah.
Like you lived through 2008, you don't know. You guys were doing what you had to do. You don't know. But when you've gone through that, it's like, it's this band of brothers thing that happens, and it becomes about the people that you work next to. And how do you? What are some things that DJ thinks help with that stress? Because superintendents have stress, but presidents have that stress and more.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I'll tell you, my wife really keeps me grounded because she's always like, no matter how hard it gets or the ups and downs, she's like, it always works out. One way or another, it always shakes out. And it's so weird how, you can be down at the bottom of that cycle and you're just like, man, how are we going to get out of this, or what's going to happen next? And you get that phone call, and sometimes when I'm in the lows and they come, it's just part of the job and part of the role. Like, you sit down and you make a list of all the people you're impacting.
Come on.
I list out my employees, their kids, their wife, their family members that they're taking care of or dealing with. And it's like, wow, when you start and you kind of look at that and the amount of people that depend on you, it kind of makes you like realize, you got to step up to the plate and make it happen.
What is, you talk about that list. Does that play into your why?
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
Tell me about your why.
My why is people, is the people. Like I mentioned earlier, watching, these kids come out of CTC, and now John Dillinger's running a $45 million nursing home project for
Okay,
us.
that's a sick name, by the way, John Dillinger. Like he's named after a gun. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I think just that, and then the clients. We just wrapped up a project at United Zion Retirement Community with Sue Vertigan. Sue was the CFO at Telhigh and worked with my grandfather. Wow. Then she worked on projects with my dad. And then when she moved over to United Zion, we were still the people she called. So it's like developing those relationships and just like ultimately the people are what makes this enjoyable and is why I do it.
What is it? So I'm hearing a theme here, and I believe I talked with you earlier about your post that I read where you said it's not about the first job, it's about the second job. But I'm hearing these themes of Paul Risk, and it's like, oh, well, we're working with these people all the way back to the origins. There's a reason why, Hers Potato Chips called. There's a reason why the trucking company called. There's a reason that they did that, and you're still getting calls from people that you've done work for. Why do you think that is?
I think number one, they trust us, and that's the biggest thing in this industry is trust. If you break that trust, that's a huge thing. I think one of the things we do a lot different too is we call it concept to completion. So you won't find a pre-construction manager on our website. You won't find an estimator. We don't have any of those positions. We only have project managers and assistant project managers. So we depend on our PMs to lead that process from pre-con through design, through bidding, buyout, build the thing, and close it out. And what that really has done is there's so many nuances where, we made design decisions. Well, why'd you do that? They understand why we did that. But what's really cool to watch is like the relationships that they build with the clients. So like typically like Charles Warwick was our project manager that had worked with Sue all those years at Telhigh, and then when she moved over to United Zion. So our PMs kind of developed their own little mini businesses within. And so it's funny because 9 times out of 10, I don't get the call anymore. Our project manager gets the call that, hey, we're thinking about building this. What do we need to do? Which is really, and it even the superintendents, like it's funny how many of our clients want that same superintendent they had from the last project.
What do you think destroys trust the fastest?
Lack of communication and understanding.
Whoa, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about earlier, like construction's not going to go as planned. There's going to be hurdles and headaches, and the sooner you can get that stuff on the table and explain the why behind how did this happen and how are we going to solve it, I think that's really. Then I think too, we treat every project as our own. So if we see something, even our superintendents that are out there in the mix of it on the day to day, if they see something that, hey, this design doesn't work, or why are we spending all this money to do this? They'll ask the why.
Yeah.
And, we get ourselves in trouble with some architects from time to time because, when we put a budget together and we see something that's kind of out of whack we're like, we'll share it with the owners and the architects so you understand, like, this is how much this item is costing. Is that really worth it to you?
Yeah. Yeah. I fully understand what you're talking about. I'm an electrician by trade, and you can have a light fixture that's $40,000, and it's like, you really, maybe you want to have a light fixture that's $5,000.
Yep. Funny story with Sue. We were doing a bathroom renovation for her, and the spec light fixtures above the vanities were, I think, close to $800.
Wow.
So we flagged it, and we're like, here's the light fixture. And I think she did some shopping that evening and found a light fixture that looked pretty darn close to the same thing for about $150. So,
Yeah.
And then what that did is it gave her money to go buy an audio visual system for her chapel.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I love when you say you guys look at the job as if it's yours, because that's really burned into your DNA as a company, because you tell that story of A.D. Pyle and how he said, sit in my chair at my desk. Look at it, and you're going to make the decisions as if it was your building that you're building.
Yep.
I mean, that goes all the way back then, and that's still the way that you guys are looking at jobs. And, if you're a developer, or if you're, managing a retirement home, and you have a project or whatever it is, it's like, well, that's how you want your GC to be looking at your job.
Yeah. Ultimately, you shouldn't need an owner's rep. That's what we're there to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and honestly, I think that if you can have that trust, which is key, and clearly you do with your clients, and that should be the biggest thing for new clients, is you have a track record of trust.
Yeah, they're our best marketing team is our clients.
Absolutely. And it's like, but then when you have that, it's one of those things, and I'm not trying to offend everyone in our industry, and there are people in these roles. I work with some of these people, but you have a construction manager, you have a GC, you have an owner's rep, there comes a point where we need to kind of step back, and it's like, what happens is you get farther and farther and farther and farther away from the project.
Yeah.
And then you can't see what's going on. The best projects that have been the most profitable and the most cost savings for clients and the most efficient for timelines that I've ever been on have been tight teams that can make decisions on the fly while they're moving together. And you can only do that if you have trust. If you don't have trust, listen, the more team members that you get and the more stuff that you get and the bigger that it grows, that's a sign that there's a lack of trust.
Yeah.
In my opinion, which isn't worth much, but the bigger that I mean, think about it from a governmental standpoint and bureaucracy. We have more and more people looking at this, and so there's not trust there.
Yep.
And then it's not efficient.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. We end up spending a stupid amount of money for a toilet seat.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's interesting because we've won and lost jobs on that that philosophy. Sometimes we walk into a job interview and we're up against 4 or 5 other contractors, and they might walk 6, 7, 8 people into the room, and we're literally walking in with myself, the project manager, and the superintendent. These are the 3 people that you're going to see from day one. These are the 3 people that are going to hand you the keys at the end. Yeah. Some people love that. Other people are like, well, I got 8 people working on the project, but are they dedicated to that project?
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Who's DJ outside of work?
Outside is I have a 5 and a 7-year-old, so it's all about the family and the fun, and that's pretty much
5 and 7. Those are good ages.
It's a blast. It's a blast.
They will be 18 and 22 before you know it.
And that's that's what they always said before you have kids. It's going to fly by. It's going to fly by. And here we are. My son's going to start tackle football this fall, which I love football. So I get to coach on his team. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And
that's awesome.
It's just we try and everything's kind of about them, and we just kind of, my wife and I pour into them for their success and just be there for them, because that's what we had growing up. And, that's huge for us.
I think that's one of the things that I truly do love about this industry and what we do. One of the things, my son just recently turned 18. He let me know the other day that he's an adult now.
My 5 and 7-year-old let me know all the time that they can make their own decisions.
He came to me and he wanted to ask me a question. He said, Dad, I want to make this clear. And he turned 18, and this was probably maybe 2 weeks after. And he's like, well, I'm not asking your permission. I'm asking your approval. And I was like, very well worded. But let's let it bake in a little bit. Why don't we talk about your rent, son? But one of the things that I love about our industry is some of the things that it does for family. My wife, one of the things that was really important to her was that we sit down at the table every night and have dinner. And that is probably one of the biggest things that has helped me in raising my kids and imparting knowledge, mentorship, future, which that's why you have a family and you have kids, to continue legacy and to continue to build people that will affect our world for good.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the reason. And so it's like, but just like, you know, you have guys go to the school, Breckville, is that what you called it?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep.
You have them, well, they had to rub elbows with him. They had to rub shoulders with him. There is no substitute for time. I remember I talked with a businessman, and if you're listening to this, maybe this is going to catch you, maybe it's going to piss you off. But I was talking with him, and he was very wealthy, very well off. And family was important to him, but he wanted to provide for them. And so they would do this thing where they would go on these extravagant vacations, like once or twice a year. But the rest of the year, he was gone.
Yeah.
And I would make this statement that later in life, his relationship with his kids, non-existent. And they weren't doing so well as adults. And what I realized through that was there is no substitute for that time next to each other. And that goes in all relationships. There's no substitute for being with people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think I'll never forget one of our great superintendents when my dad was running the company. He quit, and his excuse was he didn't see any of his daughter's softball games that year.
Wow.
And that really hit home to my dad. And my dad's like, I never told you that you couldn't go to your daughter's softball games. And that's something that's like I tell our team all the time. I'm like, it's family first.
Yeah.
Paul Risk Construction. Like there is no reason. Like if you need to go be at your kids or your maybe your parents, they're having health issues or whatever it is. Like just communicate and let us know, and that takes precedent. Well, work will be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
We're not building rocket ships here. You know, we're building great things, but if we miss a day because of something for family, that's the most critical piece of the puzzle.
Well, and I think the other thing with that, you talk a lot about communication and the importance of communicating. You know, and when we're in leadership roles, we can forget sometimes that if we're not communicating that stuff, and constantly, by the way, that people are like your dad said, I never told you couldn't do that, but it's like, well, as leaders, and this seems to be what you're talking about, we need to be telling people, hey, you can do that.
Yeah.
And earlier I said something that maybe I didn't want to say on air, and now I'm going to say it on air because I'm stupid, but I told you how I hate remote work.
Yep.
And because I think you miss some of the collaboration, you miss some of those things. And but what I don't mind is, hey, we're getting the job done. So it's not a big deal in that role if it's like, hey, you have a softball game you have to go to. As long as the deadlines are being met and the things are happening,
absolutely,
I don't care.
Yep.
Like it's about and in the construction world, it's very easy for me to understand this and comprehend this because we give a bid, and we have to build and do this project for that bid. So whatever makes you better at that through that process, as long as you're meeting your deadlines and you're meeting these things and you're communicating these things, leave a little early, go to that softball game. Don't miss that.
Yeah.
You know,
it's funny because I have to remind our superintendents from time to time, like, you know, it's not always, it's very hard to finish a job on a Friday and start that next construction project on a Monday. And sometimes, you know, plans aren't ready or, you know, so there's some slow down time. And I always have to remind them, like, enjoy the slow.
Yeah.
Because when you're in the thick of it, you know, that's not always there. But
I remember a foreman having a conversation with me. This was years ago, and I was in a project manager role. And he went from a job where he was managing 17 people to a job where he was by himself for the beginning of the job.
Oh, yeah.
And he said and it was literally a Friday, finish this huge warehouse project, and then Monday he's starting this other project, and it was going to be like a month or so before there was really another crew there. And he said to me, he goes, I had to readjust my entire brain because when you're managing 17 people, you're not touching your tools.
Yep.
When you're working by yourself, you're doing everything.
Yeah.
And he said, I really had to adjust my brain to that. And a lot of people don't realize that in construction. That's some of the up and down that you're talking about.
Absolutely, especially in what we do, because the majority of our guys are superintendents. We have a couple carpenters that grow into that superintendent, but or essentially all of our guys are out on their own island.
Yeah.
You know, and some of them will have like maybe an assistant super, but you know, the times they see each other is at, you know, safety day, and is that, you know, we race go-karts from time to time and do some fun things like that. But for the most part, they're kind of out on their own. And, but it's nice when we can get them all together, and the camaraderie and the laughter and the banter, the good old construction banter is always fun.
So I want to ask you a question here. I gave you a little bit of a heads up, and you can throw it back at me if you want to. I'm totally okay with that. But what is something that in DJ's career, as you've been coming up and going through this career, that you wish that you would have done differently, or someone would have shared their mistake with you? What is a mistake that you've made that you would be willing to share with our listeners that you've learned from?
Yeah, I think there's two things I can think of. One, I wish my dad would have maybe told me a little bit more about the highs and lows and the roller coaster of this thing. I don't know if I'd be sitting here talking to you today. And I tell my employees that all the time. Had I known 20 years ago how crazy this thing can get, I may not have jumped in and done it.
How would you, you say you wish your dad would have told you that. Let's just say that your son is, he's 7 now?
Yep.
So let's fast forward 12 years. And he wants to be in the business. How does DJ communicate that to him?
That's a great question. I think just understanding that a lot of people depend on you, and you're going to have to steer the ship through the toughest times, and that can weigh on you. And I think one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle is having a partner in life that can support you through that. I mean, the conversations I have to have with my wife, she's an amazing sounding board, and I feel terrible for all the stories she has to listen to from time to time. But I would just say, make sure it's your passion. I mean, I love building. I love what I do, especially like we had talked earlier about design build. I love just coming up with, we want to build this. How do we do it? That's where I thrive, in that concept phase. So, and then ultimately, like yesterday, we had a big wall smash for Alview Learning Center over at Pleasant View Communities. And the owners of the daycare, it's going to be the first daycare in Mannheim, and they had their kids there. So they're picking up the sledgehammer, and they're trying to slam it through the wall. So I just think, make sure you love what you do. And I think construction is going to be a heck of a lot different in 12 years. I mean, it's already so much different now.
Yeah.
But, and then back to your original question.
Mistakes.
My biggest mistake, I think, is me and my CFO at the time decided we didn't want to grow. We just kind of wanted to stay at like this $50 million company, and we'll just kind of keep doing what we do.
Yeah.
And I think that was probably one of the biggest mistakes of not growing when we had the opportunity to grow, because we could have branched out into more. We could have done more projects, met more clients. Ultimately, we're a repeat client business. So getting new opportunities is always challenging. So I think instead of like just holding tight and saying like, we didn't want the headaches of going over 50 employees and having, we just kind of looked at it like more employees, bigger jobs, more jobs is just more headaches, more problems. And I think in hindsight, had we not had that mindset and had been like, let's go and let's find the right people and let's really grow this thing, it would have put us in a better position to weather the 2020 and weather some of those challenges.
So when you're in that position, and say someone's listening here and they're struggling with that, I guess my question would be, what was you talk about your decision because you didn't want to grow, you didn't want to have those headaches and those things. If you could go back and you could do it differently, what would be the trigger or the point where you'd be like, all right, we're going to do this, and here's why we're going to do this, and why? I'm formulating my question while I'm talking, so that makes it difficult. But let me bring it and wrap it up like this. Why grow versus not grow? Because you touch on something that I actually believe in, and I think a lot of people get trapped in the, I don't want to grow anymore. And I personally think that if we stop growing, then we do the opposite.
Yeah, and I've firsthand experience, definitely. I think trying to find the right people to grow with, and then, maybe releasing some of the reins and, and
hard to do.
putting the trust in, one of the things that we pride ourselves in is like, I'm involved in the majority of our projects. I go to job meetings, I'm there. And I think our clients appreciate that because they know they have my cell phone. They know I'm going to be there. But at the same time, that handcuffs our ability to grow. So being able to find those people that you can trust and then put the trust in, and let them run and let them do their thing.
Yeah. I love what you guys are doing. I love your name actually, because risk is so inherent in what we do in construction and in life, because if we're not willing to, and I know it's your last name, but it's also a word, and it's very important. If we're not willing to take risk, that is that not willing to grow. And it can be business, it can be organizational, it can be family, it can be personal. And it's always something that we need to like tap into and make that decision of, all right, and you can do it in different ways, but you have to be willing to take some level of risk to be able to grow. And usually when we don't, and I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about me when I say this, but usually when we don't, it's actually more related to pride and ego that we don't want to take those risks. It's more related to, well, I don't want to fail and have that be seen.
Yeah. And I think we had a great thing going. And like, when you look at the hard work and like I talked about the ebbs and flows and it's like, man, can I stomach the hard work? Can I continue to do that? I think it was my biggest concern.
I want to close with this. Let me just the thing that I want to close with. Someday, someone else is going to be sitting in this chair, and I'm not talking about the line. I'm talking about the role that you have at Paul Risk Construction. What is it that you hope that you've built when you hand reins over to someone, whether it's your son, whether it's a partner, whoever it is? What are you hoping to hand over to them?
Yeah, ultimately, I think, my grandfather founded the company on the golden rule of treat everyone as you want to be treated, and the rest will take care of itself. And I think that's something that we live by today, and by treating every project as our own. If we continue to do that, then we'll have great success, and our clients will have even greater success than by trusting in us and doing things that way.
Yeah. DJ, I really appreciate your time in stepping up to the line here, having this conversation. I wish that I was still an electrician, because yours is a company that I would want to work with for sure. And so I love the way that you look at things. I love what you're doing and what you're building. I love your brand. I love that people matter, that your culture matters. And my first company that I founded was named Legacy. And you talk about, you want to be the second project, the third project, the fourth project. You understand what legacy is. And that's how you become a company that continues. And you guys have built something here, and you've gone through hard things. And I just really appreciate your honesty about the ups and downs.
Yeah.
You're sharing with people, eyes wide open. This is what construction is. This is what leadership is. This is what family business is, generation to generation to generation.
Yeah. So. Well, no, I thank you for having me on and getting the opportunity to step up to the line. And as I mentioned to you before, like, I think it's amazing what you guys are doing for the trades and highlighting the trades, and then helping try and get more people into this, because without it, we're all in it. We're all in something every day. We're in something someone built, or we drive on a road that someone built.
Come on.
So without construction, we're all going to be in a world of hurt if we don't get some more people into this business.
Well, and I love that your knowledge and understanding of that training, of putting people with the older guys and putting people alongside them. But we have to have that experience to be able to transfer that knowledge.
Absolutely.
And that's really important. So whatever you're doing this week, as you are starting out your week, we drop these podcasts on Monday. Step up to the line. Do some of the things that DJ is talking about. Communicate with your boss. Talk about, hey, my kid has a softball game. Can I leave a little early? I'm still going to hit my deadlines, but I don't want to miss it. And here's the deal. If you have that conversation with your boss and you feel like they don't listen or they don't hear you or they say no, then you want to look for a company like Paul Risk. You want to look for a company that understands the value of family, that understands the value of legacy, and that understands what it is to mentor and train and do more than one job, one client, to be a legacy that is lasting from one generation to the next. That's who you want to work for. That's who you want to work with. DJ, I really appreciate what you have brought for us today. Tremendous value. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Joshua. It was great.